Afternoon, and we're back for another episode of Pursuing the Perfect Pint podcast. It's nice to see you again, Brent.
Thank you. Episode number 9. So we are almost to double digits. It's time has flown by pretty fast, but yeah, it's pretty good. Glad to be
So
here.
we'll have to celebrate the 10th one then next week.
Yep. Yep. Progress.
And so, what have we got on the agenda today? I think obviously the hot topic is still the conference, and that's just coming around the corner.
Yeah, we've been very, very busy. So we'll do a quick run through some things related to our Lisbon conference, which is getting a lot of attention. That's very good. And then we are going to talk about one of our sponsors, which we'll introduce in a moment. We've got one of our speakers identified, which we're quite excited about because we're gonna get our boots a little bit dirty and get into the farm field. And then we've got a malt story from our friends in Denmark. So we'll tell a little bit more about that. But yeah, we've a lot of things all related to the conference coming together nicely and connecting with some of the key people in our network. So maybe we can start with the update, Danielle, from our side. Lisbon is it's still more than 2 months away, but I have to say, since last week, people are definitely back in their offices at their
Yes,
desk, and they are definitely thinking about the Lisbon conference because it has been very, very busy over the last more or less 10 days. It's
oh,
been really,
fantastic. So you're seeing some good registration numbers.
yeah, we're at a pace that's even ahead of where we were for the Rome 2024 event, which I think is quite an accomplishment and maybe quite a good indication. It's a tough market environment. We're still fighting, beer sales are lagging. Whiskey has had a
Yeah.
disruption in 2025, and we're not sure what the consumers are thinking about and where they're going. So there's geopolitical uncertainties that keep popping up. So with all that going on, people are recognizing it's still a good thing to get together.
I mean, that's in when times are tough, sometimes it's also good to invest in a bit of uh, being with the rest of the supply chain and seeing what's going on. I mean, we were talking about it, Brent. I mean, when was your first RMI conference?
Well, when you look at the timeline, this Lisbon will be my 10th. So my first
Wow.
one was 2007 in Budapest. Those were the easy days, Danielle. Easy when you weren't organizing the event; you could just sit back, relax, and pursue the perfect pint. And but now since 2022, been involved with RMI directly. So that's a whole different experience because you've got agenda to keep moving, speakers to organize and get on stage and all these things. But yeah, this is my 10th.
So I was just looking at that. I think my first one was in 2011 when we were in Prague. So it was not quite as long ago as you, Brent. But also, I've seen a few of the conferences, and it's just grown in, I think, just size and what it delivers to the supply chain, which
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yeah, and what's really a good story is I'm sure in Lisbon we will have people that have been to every one of them. For sure,
We should definitely ask that question.
there'll be a handful of people that have been there to all of them, which is good. Lots of people that have
Yeah.
been support, but I know for sure from talking to people in the last couple of weeks, we will have a number of first timers as well. So we're seeing both ends of the spectrum, which I think is really good, and we're really pleased with that.
So I think, Brent, people keep asking, I think, who's there and who's attending and all this sort of thing. So I think first of all, we've got the sponsors for the conference. Gives you a good idea of who's investing in the conference because I see it's a lot of value.
Yeah, and we've played and we will continue to do that. We do collect little snapshots from our sponsors. They're super important. Like any event like this, that they really help make it happen. But beyond that, they see a lot of value in
Yeah.
being part of the event, and they see being part of it, and they can get a lot of value out of it because they're meeting with a lot of people all in one place. And so for them, it's quite a good, if I say, it's a quite a good investment of their time and resources to be part of it, and they're very pleased. There's many long-standing sponsors that are there, so we're very appreciative of that, of course, and they make it all happen. Basically, they make it happen so that we get the right speakers there, and we're
Yeah.
at the right venues, and we've got the gala dinner, which we'll talk about, and we have our famous pub night, but you need to have pubs and you need to have
Yeah.
food
Yeah.
and everything for people. So that is a lot of that is driven by because we have such a good sponsorship support.
And who's actually attending, Brent? I think we were talking about this. Although it's an international conference, I think these are some of the companies attending, but a lot of the big European maltsters and supply chain partners.
Yeah, it's a growing list. As I said, we've seen a lot of signups. The rule of thumb generally is that it's about 70% has been the history. About 70% of the people are from Europe. Now that's a very broad Europe. That's the UK all the way across to Vladivostok, Russia. So
Yeah,
we take a very broad view of
yeah,
Europe, and that's 70% of the audience. And then the other 30% is purely global, but that includes we've got Australians registered, South America, North America, of course, including Mexico, and it's got a global feel for sure. And some of the companies, to your point, are global in nature, and they're based in Europe, but
yeah.
they have a global footprint. So it is a global conference, and it's correctly labeled because that's what it brings in the malt supply chain. The other thing on the agenda I didn't mention, but when we get into the agenda, we I feel it's important that we cover the whole supply
Yes.
chain. So every link in the chain. So we will have some farmers speaking. We'll have people that are helping develop new barley varieties, maltsters, of course, brewers, distillers, and everyone that's involved, freight, energy related people as well. So we do touch on virtually everything because when we talk about decarbonization and these things, you do need to look at every link in the chain because when you put it all together, that's what the goal is to.
And actually, Brent, you make a good point. I think people should reach out, shouldn't they? I think anyone's got a good supply chain story that they want to chat about while we're in Lisbon. That makes a lot of sense to share their stories. So anyone should reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Because the whole around decarbonization is good. Our theme is, building a resilient malt
Yeah,
supply chain for 2035, so the decade ahead. In terms of decarbonization, we won't have it done by 2035. That's
yeah.
that's for sure. But there's people talking about their goals and their targets for 2040 or whatever, and many of those people will be there. So anyone that's related to the supply chain would probably benefit from being part of that dialogue.
I think people should reach out if they've got some good supply chain stories that they could share with you while we're at the conference. And actually, that links really well to the awards because if I just look at some of the entries for the RMI Excellence Awards, I mean, I would love to hear some more about the stories that people have submitted and the people involved in those.
Yeah, I think people should. Well, I think people, if you're related to the supply chain, you should be there to be part of the dialogue. If you've
Yes,
got a really good story with our partner Bueller, we're gonna recognize some of the great stories from across the supply chain at the Excellence Awards during the gala dinner on Wednesday night. It's a really growing list from what we've talked, Danielle, you and I, in the last couple weeks. We talked to some companies and they're trying to figure out which one of the 3 or 4 projects they should submit, or maybe
Tibet,
all
yeah.
4 of them, because it is project based and it is scoped more narrowly, so people can actually come up with more than one submission if it fits across our 5 categories.
Yeah.
Our bigger problem might be a project could possibly fit in more than one category, so we'll
Well,
have to make a decision.
into them in all of them.
Yeah,
Don't have
well,
to
it
choose.
becomes a big number, but yeah,
Yeah,
the interest has been very good on the Excellence Awards, which I think validates we're kind of some of the changes we've made. I think are
good.
resonating well with
Yeah.
people.
And back to sponsors, Brent. Who's on the list for this week that
So so we did a catch up with Jefferson and Cesar from BMS Agraria. So we coming from South America, both Uruguay and Brazil. So Jefferson's going to be speaking, and they're also a sponsor. So we're quite happy to have them on board, and we'll hear from them directly. Okay, well, next up we're going to catch up with some friends from South America. So Jefferson and Cesar are here with us. So maybe first of all, you could both introduce yourselves to the audience. Jefferson, start with you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Jefferson Caos, business superintendent at Cooperativa Agrária in Brazil. It's great to be part of the REMI Global Conference and to share a little bit of our thoughts with you.
Very good. Cesar.
Cesar from BMS. We are a trading company. We belong to Cooperativa Agraria. I'm currently the commercial manager, and we are responsible for the origination of malting barley to supply our own industry.
Very good. Well, as we were talking, it's great to have the partnership with BMS Agraria continuing, and maybe a question for both of you is, what is it about the RMI conference that you like in being part of it? Where do you see the value in being part of the RMI conference?
What I really enjoy about the RME conference is the way it brings the world malt together. World malt together, producers, consumers, partners, everyone in one place. It's a great chance to exchange ideas, learn what others are doing, and also show a little bit what we believe in. Being a sponsor is our way of saying we are here, we care, and we want to be part of building future in this industry.
And Cesar, what any thoughts from your side?
This is very good insights from Jefferson. I think this is one of the main things. Also, RMI is the chance for us to understand about the sustainability, where it goes in the future, what's going to be our project, and give us some very good directions where to go. Of course, it's a lot of knowledge because they talk not just about malt and beer, but also the economic and of trading and the beer consumptions and everything. Gives us a very good north where to go with our projects. Networking, not to say, because there is a lot of smart people that you talk to, and this is very good also. And yes, visibility that it gives us to our brand too.
Yeah, and of course we can't ignore it's a difficult market environment, and we often talk that it's probably even more important these days to get together. There's lots of things to cover, sustainability, as you said, Cesar, but just in general, we need to figure out where we're going in the next decade. So that's why we've developed the theme around building a resilient malt supply chain for 2035. We're at a very challenging part of the journey, but we have to keep moving forward. So I guess we look forward to having that discussion. We look forward to having you both be part of it. So I guess thanks again for being part of the Lisbon conference, and I really look forward to seeing you in person, and we'll catch up some more in Lisbon.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you in Lisbon.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.
I think actually, Brent, you don't have to pay for a marketing agency, because you just need Jefferson saying that this is all about building for the future, which is exactly the theme of the conference.
Yeah, I didn't even talk to him about the theme beforehand, but he's fully on board, and yeah, I think it's also, I'd like to get some people giving some feedback from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
The audience is very interested in that, so I'm really looking forward to Jefferson being on stage and giving that South American with a big Brazil element to it. So really glad to have them on board.
And I think, Brent, if we have to say, there's two things that you like to focus on. One is getting the perfect pint, a lifelong endeavor. And I'd say the second is promoting the barley farmer. So I think it's great today that we have Jan to talk to us about what it means to be a farmer in Sweden.
Yeah. Well, no barley, no beer. I
Yep.
still have the sticker from our friends in the US. I think it's a great tagline. I met Jan Jansson in southern Sweden last year, touring around with Lampmannen and Viking Malt, and I was just so impressed. We're going to have to try to keep him to his time limit, because this guy is very passionate about regenerative farming. He's been doing it for a long time, which he'll talk about. And when you meet someone like that and you know that they're just switched on, I had almost immediately thought this guy would be great to have on stage in Lisbon, and he's agreed to do it. So maybe we'll just roll and hear a little bit directly from Jan, but yeah, really pleased to have him on board. Okay, now on the topic of the Lisbon conference coming up, on the agenda, which I think is very important, is to hear the farmer perspective. So I'm really pleased that we've got Jan Jansson from Sweden has agreed to be part of the agenda. So first of all, Jan, thanks for taking a few minutes today, and more importantly, thanks for agreeing to bring the farmer perspective to the audience in Lisbon.
Yes, I'm pleased to join you, Brett.
Good. Well, we had a chance to meet last summer, which I learned a lot. So maybe most importantly, I learned that you're very dedicated and passionate about regenerative ag, and it's nothing new to you. So I think what really clicked in my mind was to take that perspective that you hold and have you share it with the audience in Lisbon. So I guess maybe you could mention something about your journey in the world of
regen egg?
Yeah, we've been doing this for like 20 years now, gradually, and we've seen so many good things happen on the farm and around the fields. So we've been very enthusiastic about those results that we have received. We didn't really know exactly what was happening, but everything turned out much better than we expected, and we have learned a lot along while we have been growing from one year to the other. And we didn't know it was even called regenerative until 5 years ago. This just happens to be that it's in the interest of everyone that we can produce crops, and especially barley, in a way that it makes the whole thing more sustainable, and that we actually can benefit from it, all of us.
Yeah, and as you said, in our different connections, there's benefits for a lot of people across the supply chain. You work with Viking Malt and Latmanen as well, so it's a really good example of how the supply chain, and the Swedish example is how you're seeing this all kind of being synced up and linked together, which I think is what the industry needs to do on a much broader basis. So I guess you come with a pretty good example of something that isn't theoretical; it's actually taking place in practice.
That's right. We think that by feeding the soil, we can actually provide much better circumstances for the crop. And by taking care of the soil, we can be much more or less reliable on the weather. Because if the soil is in perfect condition, you are not so dependent on rain. And what we see now over the last 10 years is that the climate really changes. And this is actually making us more, or raising our, what is it called? We're not so dependent on rain. Yeah. Our resilience is increasing. That's what I was looking for, the word.
Yeah. Well, I would say to the audience, if they had the chance, they should get to southern Sweden and get out in the field with you. That's not practical. So the next best thing is in Lisbon, we'll get people to hear from you directly. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks again for being part of it, and we look forward to seeing you in Lisbon.
Yeah, looking forward to meet you all.
I think it's great to have actually directly from a farmer what they're thinking about regen ag, and I think a lot of people are going to find that story really interesting.
Yeah. So we have a European story, and we have already shown in a previous podcast, we'll have a U.S. farmer story, and we're going to get them up together for a bit of a panel discussion. So we will, this idea, no barley, no beer, we are definitely going to give it the much needed airtime, because there's a lot of work to be done in that space to keep farmers engaged and interested in malting barleys. So that's, as you said at the beginning, I think it's important, and as long as I have influence in the agenda, I think we'll definitely have a farmer element to it for sure.
And I think, Brent, we have spoken quite a lot around the sort of consolidation in the malting industry and what happens to the sort of mid and smaller tier brewers. I was fascinated to hear the story coming through from Fuglsang and their experience as being sort of family maltsters
around for centuries,
a long time.
Then they'll talk about that, but yeah, they're also someone we've had a long relationship with. We've done tours up in Denmark and over to their locations, and it's we touch upon it briefly in the video, but it's probably some of the most beautiful malting barley country that you could ever experience in the summer, and for when we get into it, it sets the stage for what could be the perfect pint if you were on a rolling hill with some Danish malting barley growing on early June.
Absolutely.
It would be pretty nice. But yeah, Kim and Jesper are good clients of ours, and we're really glad that they're going to be there, and really pleased that they took a few minutes to tell us about their story. And what people will hear in the story is they have a unique perspective because they see both a domestic European market element, and they're very involved in world markets, mainly Asia and Africa, as they talk about. So anyone that wants to know kind of the whole world picture, Kim and Jesper are great for providing that. So I think we'll leave it to them to say it in their own words, but it was great to catch up with them. Okay, well, now we have the great pleasure to take the pursuit of the perfect pint on a bit of a journey. We're going to go to Denmark today. So thanks to Kim and Jesper from Fuglsang to spend some time. So to both of you, thanks for being part of the podcast. Really looking forward to catching up with both of you, but thanks for taking the time.
Our pleasure. Happy New Year to you.
you as well. So I guess maybe we'll get right into it. Maybe for the audience, you could tell a little bit. Fuglsang Malting, obviously operating in Denmark, but you have two malting plants, and you've been doing some continual upgrades to those, which are really investments for the long term. So maybe we could start from that perspective around what you do, where you're doing it, and what are the things that you're spending your time and efforts on thinking about the path ahead. Maybe Kim, we'll start with you. What maybe give a bit of the overview of the operations.
Well, we've been here, as you know, for quite some centuries almost, and developed our business continuously. As a family maltster, of course, we put in a lot of money and effort into what we earned during the years. And on the agenda in the last many years has been, of course, before the word even was invented, green transition. From the 90s, we put in cogeneration, we put in heat at what do you call it, at heating source from the local district heating and so on. So the energy management has been on the agenda for a long time, but at the moment we are actually going 100% green almost on the malting in Haderslev, the small one here, where Jesper and I are sitting this afternoon, and building a heat central with accumulation of hot water. So we are investing in a high temperature heat pump and a boiler. I think it's called electrical boiler, the one you would have in your kitchen when you cook your water. And that through that system really both recuperate all the heat coming from the kiln anyway. It's done for many years, and also even the heat from the germination boxes going into this system. So it's a very complex system where you really we try to get a lot of both the heat we produce or the germination produces, as well as getting energy from outside. Electricity is the key to that. We still maintain, because that's also a little bit of our system. We maintain, of course, our sources on a traditional old style furnace gas burner, because at certain times we have to ignite that one and produce hot water for the kilns. But we also have the cogeneration. So when gas is cheap and electricity is high, we can generate heat through that way. So we have multiple sources of energy, of heat production, which is really the key of maneuvering through these markets. I think we'll be finished in August. It has taken a year more or less to build, but it's an impressive building with two huge tanks. You could think there was barley inside, but it's hot water.
Yeah, you were describing that earlier as we were prepping for this, that you kind of described it as it's kind of like a big heat battery. So you can charge it up and when the heat's available, and then you can pull from it as you need heat. So it's a innovative approach to the ebbs and flows of the energy creation, heat creation. So it sounds quite interesting. And I guess the other part is it's always good to have a backup plan. We still remember some of the energy turmoil that we went through just a few years ago. So I guess everyone has to have a contingency plan. So you've got the main system, but you can't go 100% on that. So it's nice having the backup, so your continuity is protected.
And that's what actually is a little bit my keyword, buzzword when I'm out also talking to customers. All this about 100%. I think there's nothing in life which is 100%. We're not 100% green, but we can get 90% close to things which makes sense. And then we need this security. We had it also through after the unfortunate start of the Ukrainian war. I mean, we had to burn not only gas, but even heavy fuel. We had to burn there for a short period, luckily, but that was the only way to secure our customers and ourselves. We should still in a very bad geopolitical situation.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back around, but since we're on it, I guess one of the topics that triggers the grain transition, as you described it, when you go out to customers, as you just said, Kim, what when you explain that to them, what's the reaction or what's the feedback you get from customers when you explain to them what you're doing? I presume they look at it positively, of course, but I guess it's certainly an example that you're investing. I was curious what's the response you get from your
well,
customers?
We're operating a high percentage on export, but also very high percentage in domestic area. And without saying anything bad about some customers, but there are some very focused on the on the green transition, and others, of course, are less focused. I think that would be a balanced reply to that question. But certainly, we're happy to have it because I believe we're all moving towards that world where we should be able to operate in a world with more green and less black energy.
Yeah, but it's a bit what you said earlier, Kim. It's if you've got 50 people in the room, you're probably not going to have everyone on the same page. So it's I think that's human nature in some ways, but I do agree. I think the direction is there. I think we have some challenges along the journey to the green transition and the details around that. But I think most people can think at some level it's in the right direction. But there's different levels of engagement on that subject, which is a little bit of a challenge, which we will get into quite a bit when we get to Lisbon, because it's one of those key topics I think we need to discuss. But we'll come back around to that, I guess. So operationally, you're doing a lot of work and investing for the future, which is good. The other thought I had was we're now complete with crop 25, and I was thinking a little bit that it looked like the potential for a very good crop. In the end, the yields were good, but maybe almost too good. I'll let you guys describe it, but I guess the yields were almost too good that the plant spent most of its time multiplying and focused on yield. And one of the things that came on the opposite of that was protein levels are a bit lower. But maybe Jesper, do you want to talk a little bit around how you would summarize the crop 25 from the Fuglsang position?
I would say it's a good, sound, and average crop. Size, of course, was quite big, and we are happy that we are able to have the selection. Another thing that's really good for the Danish farmers is that we also have a big demand for feed barley. So that what we cannot use at our plant, we can, or not we, but it can be used as feed barley. So, and having both our plants very close to the fields and the warehouses, I would say we are quite happy with what we are getting in right now.
And it's more than just crop 25. I guess what we have seen for several years or longer is the farmers in Denmark do look favorably to barley. You touched on it. Having both the feed and the malting option is, of course, a big asset. Barley in general is a good crop for them. Normally, they probably don't like the prices at the moment, but that's hopefully a more short-term thing. But I guess you would expect to see a continued good barley view from the farmers. So they're planting the acres, the hectares, and they look quite favorably to barley. Would you agree with that statement?
Of course, they need it for the crop rotation. So again, for us, it's really nice that they have the wheat, they have the barley, they have their different other crops. They will not, or the farmers cannot just see, we don't want to have the barley anymore. They need it, and still, even though they may not get big premium on the malting barley, they still have somewhere to put it, which is
yeah. Well, the premium is maybe on the low side of normal, but it's a little bit better for crop 26. So I would think it's a fair expectation that you'll keep the farmer interest, which is important. We're going to say it a lot leading up to Lisbon, but I like it. It came from some of our friends in the U.S., but they promote a lot that says, no barley, no beer, which is about the best way to summarize it. That we need that farmer with us generally across the board, and I think you sit in a part of the world where you do have a very good position when you look at the farmers and the people you work with through to the farmers. So I think you're kind of on very stable ground, I would say, and it's good to hear that you've got the.
I agree, Brent. We are privileged here in this country, of course, but by the vicinity of our farms. It's a small country and with a high production, and even, as everybody in the industry knows, export to our neighbor countries. I think that we're happy about that. Certainly gives us some fundamental strength, even to grow through sometimes bad times, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So just one last word to the 25. Takes over from a crop 24 where things were a little bit difficult. So Kim and I, we are not unhappy with the situation on the malting barley.
I think everybody in the company is happy because I think a little bit more relaxing at the
a little less stressed than. Well, I'll add it. So anyone that's listening to this, and I would be happy to lead it. If you want to go somewhere in the world and see some of the most beautiful landscape of a barley field that flows almost down to the sea, then you should join me in Denmark, in Jutland, and we'll stop by and see the Fuglsang facility because it'd be hard to beat that view in the world. Having seen it many times myself, so I think we'll get to that later as well. There's probably a setting somewhere in there where the perfect pint's going to discussion will come up, but we'll get there in a moment. Maybe another topic that I had in my mind was very unique in one way is, and you touched upon it already. You have, as Fuglsang, you have quite a view to the domestic market, which I would call the Danish market, maybe into Sweden a bit, and certainly northern Germany. I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on. First, we'll do kind of that view towards the domestic market, but you also mentioned that you actually look to the export market as a big part of your business. So you kind of have a very good vantage point because you see both of them. So I'd like to take a few minutes to kind of get your thoughts on what you see going on in those two markets. It most likely will be quite different or might be similar, but maybe do you want to start with the domestic market? Who wants to take the first stab at just what are you seeing and any interesting trends that you're seeing within the domestic beer market?
I mean, we unfortunately see continuous reduction in beer consumption, and that is not nice. Of course, we have our fair share of the domestic market on the malt side, but it goes down. And we even have some companies that now produce more soft drinks than they do beer. I mean, this was a tipping point in some of the larger beverage companies in the Scandinavian area. So that is, I think, the world we have to live with, and therefore our focus has and is still very much to overseas countries, which are not easy either. Not at the current situation. We all know that who are in the business. Of course, it's a tough competition out there. But I think looking at how we operate and so on, and with our access also to these markets on especially containerized shipments, then we also can maintain a competitiveness and go through more difficult times.
Yeah.
But it is down.
And as Kim is down, and we can see that it's not the big market, but the craft brewers numbers is from 24 to 25 down to about 75 breweries. So the craft is under pressure, and of course they trying to look at new trends like the non-alcoholic, low alcoholic. So this is really the trends we're seeing like everywhere else in the Scandinavian market.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, Jesper. I was curious what Kraft was doing because Kraft had a period where there was some pretty good growth, but it's now, like in other markets, as you said, it's struggling. I think it's back to which we get back to all the time. It's really an affordability challenge. I just think premiumization is feeling the impact, and people are spending. If they are consuming alcohol, they're choosing more economical options. In some cases, they're not drinking alcohol at all, which is another problem. So I guess, yeah, as you said, Kim, unfortunately, that's a trend you're seeing locally, and it's around the world in many cases. So third year of decline in 2025. We need to break the cycle. That's why we were joking before. I've decided this year not to do dry January because I think I need to do my best to support malt demand. I'll keep doing that. But okay, so maybe on the export side, when you look around the world, can you give us a couple examples of some good news? Is there some parts of the world where you're actually seeing that there's been some recovery, or you're seeing things improving a little bit? Do you have any insights?
A little bit more green light or positive is in the Southeast Asian area. I mean, we have, I think, as many colleagues have done, we had to stop a little bit of production here during Christmas. I've done some renovation and maintenance. That's the right word, maintenance in English, in our area. But I think it's moving a little bit better now. And I think, I mean, we are there, and we have good and loyal customers also. So I think we'll go through and that ditch which we are in, all of us, and many of us are. And again, I think we are not losing optimism. Let's put it that way. Turn it around. We are positive as we will be there. And then we know even we are in a world which fluctuates. So things will also return at a certain.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear. Of course, we've talked about it many times. Southeast Asia is a long-term emerging market with a potential. It has had some problems, we know, and there were some localized things, Vietnam with the drinking and driving and some of the regulatory things. We hope those are now behind us and that region can get back to growth. guess Africa would show some potential as well. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
but to some degree, I guess that would be you're in a position where you can see a couple emerging markets that you can serve quite competitively. Would you say that's kind of the same thing for Africa as what you said for Southeast Asia?
Absolutely, yeah. As long as ships are sailing from the area here in Scandinavia, from Aarhus, from Hamburg, I think we're fast to reach any place where you can drop off containers.
Yeah, and I guess with that, South America would be less so because that's a bit of mainly a bulk market. So,
Exactly.
So from your side, the business is really it's really an Asia game and a Africa game. That's kind of you guys compete.
But as Kim said, with Southeast Asia, it's tending to go up a little bit, but we came from a very low point. So I think everybody needs to be a little bit more positive, and we need some positive wits. Then we're back in again.
Yeah. Well, positive growth would help, but it doesn't change, the fundamentals are there's a lot of competition as well. You compete with malt out of China, certainly malt out of Australia.
Yeah.
So you've got, it's not easy. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. It's a very competitive market, but the helpful thing would be actually if the size of the pie grew, that would be a positive. And of course the competition is always going to be there, but I guess you're well positioned to compete. So I guess, and you've been doing it for well over a century as you started with, Kim. So you're in the game for the long term and will continue to be. So maybe with that, we'll maybe start to wrap up. I've kind of hinted at it. So we like on the podcast to ask the question, if you had to describe an occasion or maybe people that you would enjoy this with, but what's your version? And we'll start with you, Kim, but we'll get you as well, Jesper. But if you think about it, when I describe the perfect pint, what does that look like in your mind? What is that perfect pint? And Kim, we'll start with you.
Well, the perfect pint would be obviously a wonderful beer. It would be a lager, my choice at least, brewed either from one of the very wonderful North German or Danish breweries. I would sit at the Baltic at the sea. I would sit on a chair because I don't want to get my butt into the sand. But with some good friends or some good barley traders or customers, having the feet in the water at the Baltic in summertime, of course, having sailing boats crossing and the barley growing and a nice wind, smooth wind, not too hot, not too cold, and then say cheers.
Yeah, I would join you for that one, by the way. Jesper, your version of the perfect pint.
I would say it's pretty close to what Kim is saying. Come to Denmark in summertime, smell the barley and the sea. It's always nice. But if I have to go a little bit beside, it's dark outside. I love my barrel-aged stouts in wintertime. So that would be for me sitting, listening to the winds outside, dark and with the fire on. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've actually got two perfect pints, Jesper. You've got a summer version and a winter version. So
I can come up with a stick version as well, no problem.
Yeah. Well, as we were prepping for this, you could tell it was impactful for me because I brought back the memory of us sharing a blackbird down by the Baltic. So that's, as I said, that was getting pretty close to the perfect pint. So, well, let's wrap it up there. But thanks very much for taking some time and sharing a few of your thoughts and an update from the business. I look forward to seeing you both in Lisbon, and we'll keep looking for that perfect pint, and we'll do the next one. The search will continue, and we'll see you in Lisbon.
See you in Lisbon. Thank you very much.
All the best. Cheers.
Cheers. You. Bye.
I loved that. I think if you think about it, they were already fashionable in energy reduction way before it became fashionable. And I think that's some of the advantage of, being a sort of family maltster and being able to control your own destiny. And also so cool, calm and collected, that's fine. Things shift around. We just move our malts around. We're ready to take on the world.
Yeah. And they've been through some, of course, like many maltsters in Europe, when the Ukraine-Russia conflict erupted, that threw energy markets upside down, and they were very thankful that they had their district heating thing already set up, but they still had to have backup systems and so on. So there's some great examples in that of how willing the industry is to prepare for the future, have backup plans, make a longer term strategy to more renewable energy sources and so on. So they're a perfect example for us to profile. So thanks again to Kim and Jesper, and maybe sometime in the future we'll have them back for version 2, or maybe in person sharing a Blackbird Danish beer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I think last but not least, Brent, what's on the agenda for next week?
Well, we next week, as a teaser, we have some friends at the Bountiful Bag Company. These ladies are in San Diego, California. We've got connected with them in terms of preparing some conference bags and so on. And their model is they're upcycling used malt bags that are used in the brewing process. So we got connected with them through Rar Malt in the U.S. and we've done a lot of things with them, and we'll continue to. Personally, I'm a big supporter of what they do, so we help them out any way we can, and we'll continue to do that. So we're going to capture a bit of their story and share with people next week. So I would invite people to come to our first double-digit podcast,
Yes.
number 10 next week.
Cheers. See you next week.
Cheers.